But when you start stacking things like that, it's going to attach to your identity. You're going to say, well, I am the kind of person who does that. And then right there, by default, you're going to get a little bit more confident.
So you just got to understand everyone starts somewhere, and you got to start small. And if you don't start small and you don't keep the promises you make to yourself on the small stuff, the chances of you getting to the big stuff isn't going to happen.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, NLU Weekly Live podcast for week number 109. Is lack of confidence holding you back? So if you were here several moments ago, you would see that Alan and I were trying to log on. Amy was behind the scenes. Everything was jeffing. It wouldn't let us log on. We were live in some places. We weren't live in other places. But when you practice something for a long period of time and you become confident and feel competent, I think that helps you build confidence. I know that if this happened to us on the very first or the second or the 20th, I do believe I'd probably feel a lot differently. But I think that one of the points Alan will make here, and I might make it as well, is confidence often comes from competence. The first time I learned to drive a car, I remember my mom said, take a left turn. And I said, I got it. And I took a left turn doing about 35. And it was, Alan, it was onto your street, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it was onto the street next to the Habitat. The street next to the Habitat.
Yeah. West Street.
Yeah, and I was hammering. And obviously, I wasn't confident in my driving capabilities because I had never done it before. But now here we are, however many years later, and I can listen to music, and I can listen to podcasts, and I can do a bunch of things while I drive. And at the time, I couldn't. So my confidence has grown with my competence. We're going to talk about confidence today. Why are you giggling, man?
Because that left turn gets people.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
telling you.
I was hammering it.
I've been there. So we are starting 10 minutes late. We're going to go 10 minutes long. I'm pretty sure Kevin literally just said that.
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Is a lack of self-confidence holding you back? The answer to that question is yes. No matter who you are. I say this often. I said this at Next Level Live. I said, the truth of the matter is, and you all know this, if you look back on your lives, you don't believe in yourself enough. You didn't believe in your own abilities enough. You didn't believe in your goals enough. I said this on Book Club on Saturday. I said, everyone think of a dream they have right now, anything, big or small. Do you have it in your mind? Okay? In your mind's eye. The truth is, you do not believe in that dream enough. And if you do not believe in that dream enough, it's not going to happen. The chances of it happening are directly predicated with how much you believe in it. And is a lack of self-confidence holding you back? Self-confidence is just a belief in your own ability to go figure it out. So the first point that I have here, I wrote this down. Self-confidence is a necessary prerequisite to getting started. And getting started is a necessary prerequisite to achieving anything magnificent. You cannot think of a person who has achieved something truly remarkable, truly magnificent, truly world-denting without self-confidence. It is not a thing. You do not set goals that are high and that are large and that are wide and that are amazing if you don't have self-confidence. And so you got to start small and build. Self-confidence is a necessary prerequisite. Our word for this podcast, Next Level University, our 10-word description of it. Heart-driven but no BS, holistic self-improvement for dream chasers. Self-confidence is a necessary prerequisite to even having dreams. If you can all think of someone out there right now who doesn't have any goals and dreams, they're just drifting around with the tide. They don't have any direction. They don't have any goals. They don't have any dreams. They don't have any ambitions. They aren't trying to really achieve that much. They're happy or content where they are. They don't need that much self-confidence. It doesn't require that much self-confidence if you're completely satisfied where you are. But if you want to set that big goal, you want to set that big dream, you want to get to that next level, you're going to have self-confidence, and that's my first point.
Alan, I have a question for you.
What's up, man?
Somebody, I think Sarah posted in Next Level Nation recently, if you could talk, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but if you could talk about anything for 40 minutes, something along the lines of what are you the most confident talking about? And if you could do a keynote on that for 40 minutes, what would it be? What's your answer for that?
Reverse engineering success, achievement. How to achieve a specific outcome.
Is there any part of you that doesn't think you could do it?
No.
See, it's so interesting. Even I had the moment of like, I don't know, 40 minutes is a long time for me to talk about something just completely unprepared. So even something like that, I still deal with lack of confidence at times. My confidence is the highest it's ever been, for sure, but I still deal with things like that. That's why I wanted to ask Alan, because I kind of already knew the answer, and I want to be vulnerable. I think it's important that, again, you might see us 900 and however many episodes in business and clients and all that, and you might assume, well, Kevin must be as confident as Alan, or Kevin must be way, way more confident than I am. Sometimes I probably am, in some situations I probably am, but other ones I'm probably not. And I always try to be as vulnerable as humanly possible when it comes to that, because I don't ever want somebody to see where we are and say I can never get there because I'm not that confident, because I wasn't that confident in the beginning either. I think that's very
Can I
important.
share something with you real quick, Kev?
Oh, sure, man.
I'm confident in my ability to do that. I'm not confident in my ability that I'll think it's a 10 out of 10. So if you asked a different question of how confident are you that you can give a keynote that you would consider world class, my confidence would be much lower. I can give a keynote for 40 minutes on achievement. That's not a question. Whether or not it'll be extraordinary in my own eyes is a different story.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that's important.
It is. It's a good point. So as we mention on every episode, probably every live podcast, Alan and I go on a lot of other shows. And I was thinking about this recently, Alan. The first show I ever went on was Anthony Trucks. Don't know why. No idea why Anthony had me on. I'm not certain. I'm not sure. But he did. But there was another time where I had this opportunity, and I'm actually going to change the point of this lesson. I had this opportunity to go on this podcast, and the person who did this podcast was unreasonably successful, had a fitness franchise that was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. This person's studio was in their garage, and it had their Ferrari behind them. They was literally, that was their set, a Ferrari, and then they were sitting in front of it with a microphone. This gentleman has since passed away, Sam Bakhtiar, rest in peace. What my first point is, you have to start saying yes to things that are in alignment with where you want to go. And this is how I phrased it. And I laughed when I put it together. I said, Alan, this is going to be cheesy, but I think it's true. Sometimes in order to see what's eventually possible, you have to do what's currently possible. You have to step up on top of the ledge to see what's possible for you in the future. Since then, I've done, 150 other podcasts. And yes, that's a weird circumstance to get started. But I remember having that conversation with myself of, okay, I am terrified to do this. I was literally in Alan's mom's basement. That was our old studio. And this guy had a Ferrari. And I was like, this is going to be weird. I'm in like a basement. But I remember when he logged on, he's like, hey, I've read about your story a little bit. I know you guys do a podcast. I'm interested to talk about podcasting and to see what you've learned. Any questions for me? And I remember just going like, no, let's just do this. Let's see what happens here. And it was a really, really good interview. It went really, really, really well. But the part of me before, I didn't want to do it. I genuinely didn't want to do it. I was terrified. I thought it was going to go horribly wrong. But by doing that, by doing something that was actually aligned with the person that I wanted to become, it built confidence. Because number one, it went better than I expected. It didn't go horribly wrong. And number two, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road, it helped me change my identity. I am this quote-unquote shy person who doesn't feel like he's a very good podcaster who just got interviewed on one of the most successful podcasts. That does something to your identity when you start saying, you know what? I'm going to say yes to this opportunity. I'm going to say yes to this opportunity. We've talked a lot, Alan, about when you and I go to events, I always try to do something that's a little bit outside of my comfort zone, because I know that when I reflect on that, those will be cogs in what becomes my identity. Those become the framing of what my identity grows to when I say, well, I remember when we were at Brendan Burchard and Tom Bilyeu said, hey, we want to do a Q&A? I'll take 6 questions. I remember standing on top of my chair, putting my hand up, even though I was terrified to do it, even though I wasn't super confident. So the first point here that I'm making is you have to do things that are in alignment with who you want to become, even / especially if they're scary. Because in the moment, it might not build confidence. In the next week, it might not build confidence. But when you start stacking things like that, it's going to attach to your identity. You're going to say, well, I am the kind of person who does that. And then right there, by default, you're going to get a little bit more confident. And then it'll allow you to, it'll shift. So sometimes in order to see what's eventually possible, you have to do what's currently possible. What's currently possible will be better. And then the next time it'll be better. And the next time it'll be better. And you'll be able to see a brighter future for yourself that didn't exist before you first started the journey.
When you say what's currently possible will be better, what you mean is you'll get more opportunities as you keep doing this.
I think that, yes, but also so many of us, myself included, we determine what's possible for ourselves through not facing our fears. So think of it like at that time, that didn't even seem possible to me. Being on a show that successful did not seem like it was realistic or something I could do. So when I got that opportunity, I had to say yes to it because that would bring me to a new level of like, oh, you know what? That's now possible for me to do it. Even if it didn't go super well, to your point, is it going to be the best podcast I ever do? Probably not. But it proves to you that there's more possibility. There's more possibility. So if you were to...
So you didn't believe that was possible before doing it?
No. I think when you struggle with confidence, it's not seeing is believing. I think it's doing is believing. And I think that's why it's like you kind of got to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit. And you got to do the thing that's there. You got to take advantage of the thing that's there. I didn't want to do Dave Meltzer's podcast the first time. I know that. But I had to. It's the next available thing that I know will help me down the road. It's almost like, it's kind of like investing confidence. You're taking this opportunity to put money away into a fund that you might not see right away. And it's going to be scary. But a year down the road, those are the things you look back on for proof, right? That's when we sign on here, Alan, I look at the 108 other previous episodes and then I go, there's your proof. You've done this 108 times, Kev. It's like worst case scenario, you forget what you're going to say, just do a little dance and it's going to be fine. Where I think that if the last piece of proof that you have is you saying no to something you should have said yes to, it jeffs you and then you get stuck in that cycle. So that's my point is you got to take advantage of the opportunities that you have to prove to yourself that what you want to do eventually is not only possible, but probable if you keep doing the right things.
Kev, my next point here, the most difficult step to building real confidence is first admitting that you're not. And I think you've been really good at that, genuinely. I think there's a lot of people that aren't very confident that struggle to be vulnerable and admit that they're not. And I remember early in the Hyperconscious Nation, prior to it being Next Level Nation, we had onboarding questions to come into the Facebook group. One of the questions was 0 to 10, how confident are you? And there was a moment here recently where this happened again, where I was in book club, we're reading Think and Grow Rich, and we set net worth goals. And I think I had everyone put in the chat how confident they were that they could achieve their net worth goal. And I remember one person in particular, and I'll keep it anonymous, of course, put a 10 out of 10. And I remember thinking to myself, like, no, I know there's no chance that you're a 10 out of 10. And I think there's a detriment to believing you are when you aren't. Can you go into that for everybody? Because early on with the Hyperconscious Nation, I remember we knew some of these people behind the scenes, and some of them would put 10 when we know they're actually 2. And then some people would put 2 when it's like, honestly, you're like really confident. Yeah. Like real confidence, not fake confidence. And I have a point about fake confidence after this, but I think you've done an awesome job at just being like, honestly, I'm not confident, but I'm going to do this anyway. And then you build confidence through that. And, you know, this live podcast is lack of confidence holding you back. I think the first step to building it is realizing you have to build it, admitting you have a confidence issue. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have trouble with that first step. Seriously. I think it's one of those weird things where, even to Alan's point, if you have, really think about this because it doesn't make any sense. And I don't know why it's set up this way. If you have the confidence to put that you're a 0 out of 10 in confidence, you're kind of somewhat confident. Yeah. You know, like it's almost like saying, it might not seem like confidence to admit you're broke, but that's very confident. It's a confident thing to do because it requires you to face the fear of judgment. It requires you to face people laughing at you. That requires confidence, and it might not seem like it. I think that one of the problems, one of the issues, one of the short sights on this is you assume people are going to look at you differently. Honestly, they might.
I mean, people are probably going to look at you differently, but differently isn't always bad, especially if it's accurate. If you're not confident and you know deep down you're not confident, you admitting it might bring you possible opportunities that you never would have gotten before from people around you. Somebody might say, "Oh, I never would have thought you're not confident." And then you start thinking to yourself, "Okay, why not?" Well, I don't know. You look very confident and you have great conversational skills and the way you carry yourself and you make people laugh. And those all become positive bids for your character and who you are as a human being. And I think you'll get some sort of feedback. Now, can you get negative feedback? Of course, but anything, Alan, you and I have talked about this a lot. Awareness is always the first step because it changes the approach. And okay, this is what I'll say. I used to think that I was confident when I went out to the bar or to the club or whatever, and I would get drunk and I would just be wild. I remember I did a handstand one time and I accidentally kicked somebody in the face. I almost got kicked out because people might see that and be like, "Wow, he's super confident to do that." No, I was very drunk. I was very drunk at the time. I had to admit to myself and to Alan one time, and I said, "Hey, man, I don't like the bar or the clubs, and I think the reason is I'm not confident in that environment. What I need to do is stay sober. Will you go stay sober with me? Because I know you're trying to stay sober." And then we ended up going. So the admission of
you
the
had
truth.
a couple drinks.
I did. I had one. I think I had one. I think I had one. Vodka Red Bull. Red Bull. And again, I didn't really accomplish what I was trying to accomplish.
No handstands that night.
No handstands. No. I almost got kicked out, so I learned my lesson. I just think that your admission of the truth affects the way you approach the situation. It affects the feedback you're willing to get. It affects the coaching you're willing to get. It affects the mirrors. It affects the perspective of the mirrors. Because when you say to yourself, "You know what, I'm not that confident," when you look back into your past, everything is a potential opportunity for growth. But if you kid yourself and maybe delude yourself into thinking that you are confident, none of those things become opportunities. They just become whatever they used to be. They're not growth opportunities. They're just what was. I feel like I'm very philosophical today.
You're in flow, man. It's good.
Did any of that land?
Yes.
Make any sense?
Yeah. Cool. I had to. I'll talk about the alcohol challenge. There are people who I grew up with that, quite frankly, had a more detrimental alcohol challenge than I did. The difference is I admitted it. And when I admitted that I had a problem, I started to actually work on the problem. And that's the thing. And I don't say this because I want to inflate me or deflate anyone else. You're not going to solve a problem that you don't believe you have. So if you don't believe confidence is the issue, what are the chances you're going to read a book on confidence?
Yeah.
And so when that person put 10 out of 10 in the chat, I went, that's a scotoma. A scotoma is a blind spot, a psychological blind spot. And I have blind spots too, so does Kevin. That's what we've done for the last 5 years, is try to identify each other's blind spots and our own. If you think you're confident and you're not, the best thing to do is just be like, okay, maybe I'm not actually that confident. And this is the question that I would ask you. Why would someone with level 10 confidence have level 2 goals? That's something to contemplate. Because there's a lot of people that say they're level 10 level confidence, but they have very low goals. It doesn't make any sense, right? So if you had level 10 self-confidence, you'd set higher goals. Of course you would, right? Very, very important point.
When I was younger, I played baseball, and I enjoyed baseball very, very much. My mom actually made me play. I played soccer before that, and I was really good at soccer, and my mom made me play baseball. She said, "You have to try it at least." And I said, "I won't do it." And I cried, and then I went and played. And I remember and Alan, I don't know, this is a different piece that I didn't connect until recently. So I started playing baseball when I was 9, and I made the All-Stars the first year I ever played. I know Matt will like the baseball stories because Matt on the team was a baseball player, made it far further than I ever did. Then I played when I was 10, 11, 12, 13. Somewhere in there, I went to the eye doctors. And when I went to the eye doctors, they did all the tests and all that stuff. And I remember the eye doctor told my mom, the eye doctor said, Kev must really be struggling in school. And she said, "No, he's a good student, like A's and B's." And he said, "Oh, that's interesting. He must really be struggling with sports though, right?" And she said, "No, he's an all-star baseball player. He's one of the best in the league." And he's like, "That's very wild because he can't see out of one of his eyes and he needs glasses." And I remember after that, I started to look at myself a little bit differently because I thought I was lucky. I thought I hit home runs because I was lucky. I thought I made really good plays because I was lucky. And as I started to learn about myself and I started to go to the batting cages and I started to learn more about baseball, I became more confident because I was able to differentiate the difference between luck and skill. And now to this degree where we are today, I can look back and say, wow, you actually had a lot of talent that you may never have given yourself credit for. But when that eye doctor said that to me, that helped me look at things a little bit differently because I gave myself more credit. The fact that the eye doctor said, well, anybody else who comes in here and can't see and is playing sports usually doesn't do a good job, that actually helped me build my confidence because that was like the underdog of, well, I'm actually doing pretty darn well. I want you out there, if you struggle with confidence, to try your hardest to differentiate the difference between luck and skill. What is the difference between luck and skill? You have to check in with that because I think that if you struggle with confidence, you do not give yourself the opportunity or the wins that you deserve. People are really good at finding the losses. But if I say write down 3 wins from this week, people who struggle with confidence just go, I don't know if there are any. And you have to start rewiring that, even if it doesn't seem normal, even if it seems like you're faking it. I don't believe in fake it till you make it, but there are things there for you to find as victories, and it might be challenging. Really, really lean into the fact that you're probably not getting lucky that often. You're not getting lucky if you're crushing your speeches. You're probably not getting lucky on repeat. If you're getting a lot of clients, if your business is doing well, odds are you're not getting lucky. Maybe it's because you're better than you think you are. So differentiate luck and skill and do a lot of reflection. I think that's important too. I was not very self-aware when I was 10 years old. Most 10-year-olds aren't. I wish I was more self-aware, but now I have that lesson at least to share with other people.
Hey, I wanted to give my experience working with Kevin and the rest of the Next Level University team. It has been such a seamless relationship. He is so easy to work with, Kevin, and he gives you all the information you need, but doesn't overwhelm you. He's also meets you where you're at. So whatever you want to do, he'll make it work. And it's just, there's no stress, there's no drama. And everybody else that I've worked with has been patient with me because I am not technologically savvy. So they've been helpful and patient and just encouraging. And it's just been a fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend working with them.
The difference between luck and skill, Kev, something just came to me. I was on the phone with a client recently, and she just gave her first speech in front of like 500 people, which was wild.
Wow.
And I remember I told her after, I said, do you know who John Laredo is? And John Laredo is one of our clients, and he has a podcast called Tomorrow's Leader, and he's a very strong speaker. He's spoken in front of thousands of people. He's run multiple companies. He's one of the stronger podcasters that we produce. He's just an excellent speaker. And this person, this client of mine, this other client of mine, I said, I want to share something with you that I don't know if you know about yourself. Self-concept, identity. Do you know how good of a speaker you are? This is how extraordinary you are as a speaker. We get mid-tro testimonials. So we get testimonials from our clients who are kind enough to jump on their iPhone and for a minute express their heart's truth. And all we do is say, hey, can you just express from the heart? I'm not asking you to say anything. Please keep it around a minute. Just say whatever's true in terms of your experience of working with us. This client of mine, we've gotten 30 or 40 testimonials at this point. Very, very grateful. Maybe even more than that. And this client was so good at her testimonial. Her testimonial was by far the best, in my opinion. And I asked her, how many takes did that take? Like, how did you do that? How many takes? She's like, 2 or 3. I'm like, do you know who John Laredo is? She's like, no. I said, go listen to his podcast. He's an extraordinary speaker. And he's been speaking for 15 years. And you've never spoken before. You just gave your first speech. And your testimonial, in my opinion, was better than his. Nothing against John's. See, the difference between luck and skill, if she made the mistake of thinking she got lucky at that speech or she got lucky on that testimonial, it wouldn't leak into her confidence. She should be confident in her speaking ability. She's an extraordinary speaker. Genuinely best testimonial we've ever gotten. And if she doesn't know that, she's not going to double down on it. She's not going to triple down on it. She's not going to quadruple down on it. You might have skills that you're taking for granted, and you might think you're getting lucky, and it's not true. And I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Can I add something real quick, Alan?
Please. What's happening?
John Laredo, who is a world-class speaker, TEDx Talk, he's got almost 300 episodes, I think, of his podcast, which is wild. It wasn't even one of his first speeches. He was giving a speech in front of a large audience. He was the CEO of a financial firm, and he had a panic attack on stage in front of everybody and had to exit the stage, and then they went to a break because they didn't know what else to do. And John ran to the bathroom, and then everybody during the break goes to the bathroom, and then people were in there seeing him while he was losing his mind. And he overcame that and now gets paid many thousands of dollars to speak around the world. So that's a whole nother thing is even if things go worst case scenario, you can always rebuild. Always, always, always rebuild.
That's to my next point, actually. Start small and build. If you can't keep daily promises to yourself on the small stuff, you'll never actually get to the big stuff. Every expert was once a beginner. Kevin and I were doing free coaching. Now, 1,300 coaching calls later for me, I consider myself an extraordinary coach. Kevin and I have podcasted well over 1,000 times each. But we started at the beginning pretty terrible. If anyone is curious, reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram. You can email me. You can say, hey, I want to see the Real Life Superheroes episode, the very first Real Life Superheroes episode. I have it unlisted, saved privately on my YouTube channel. It's the very first YouTube video I ever created, and it's genuinely terrible, but I kept it. And the reason I kept it is because I want to be able to show people where we started. If you think Kevin and I are good at this, and I hope you do, it's not because we were naturally gifted. It's not because we're better than you at speaking. It's not because we're somehow inherently more capable. It's because we have way more practice and we've done it way more times. So if you're going to start a podcast or you're going to speak on stage, do not compare to us now. Compare to that video I'm going to send you. Okay, and now do I think that Kevin and I have some natural inclination towards communication? Yes, and I want to admit that. And if you struggle to communicate effectively, I have one friend of mine who actually had a stutter growing up. And he worked on it so much and so consistently that he actually speaks better than most people who never stuttered. Genuinely. He's actually in sales and real estate now, absolutely killing it. But he worked on it. He worked on his insecurity. He worked on his confidence. He worked on his stutter. So these are things that you can develop, but you're not going to develop them if you don't keep the small promises to yourself. That small promise to myself of that first YouTube video has now aggregated to where we are now. And of course, I'm more confident now than I was. I remember that first video, and you can tell. Reach out to me. I'll send you the link. You can tell how not confident I was in my own speaking abilities. I was so unconfident in front of the camera. I was in a classroom with a whiteboard behind me. You know, I was not dressed nice. I had this superhero shirt on, and I literally had this little black notebook behind me in front of me reading off of it. So you just got to understand everyone starts somewhere, and you got to start small. And if you don't start small and you don't keep the promises you make to yourself on the small stuff, the chances of you getting to the big stuff isn't going to happen.
Alan and I went to Florida. We lived in Florida for a month in 2018, I think. I don't remember what it was. I think it was 2018. And the reason, I would say the sole reason we went down there is because Alan and I were going to record online training courses. We had gone to Brendan Burchard event before, and he was talking about the importance of online training courses. And our mentor that we were at Brendan Burchard with bought this $3,000 course or something that taught you the framework on how to do an online course. And we said, all right, that's cool. And I remember we interviewed him, and he said, you guys should come live in Florida for a month. And we were like, that's wild. Maybe we'll talk about it. And we ended up doing it, and it was awesome. The reason we went down there was to record those courses. And there was so much growth, and we talked about business, and we started our website, and we also formed an LLC. That's when we actually became a business. But I remember that was the first time I was ever interviewed, Alan. I was actually interviewed while we were down there by our mentor.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And he taught us about the story arc and how to go through your story and the hero's journey, and he taught us all this awesome stuff about speaking. And I remember he said, all right, you ready to go? And I said, yeah, I guess. And there was multiple cameras. There was a big TV. There was all these lights. And I was like, I guess it's time to do it. Let's do it. And afterwards, he said, what'd you think? How'd you think it went? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I've never done it before. I think it went pretty well. And he said, well, let me tell you this. That is the worst you'll ever do. And I remember thinking, like, is that good? Is that bad? And he said, you got to think. It's your first time doing it. You just learned how to do it. That's the worst you'll ever do. If you stop doing it, it'll be the worst and it'll just stay. But if you continue doing it and you continue practicing, you'll get better and better and better and better. And there'll always be room for improvement. But the first is the worst. Are you ready for it, Alan? The first is the worst. The most recent is the most decent. Ooh. That I told Alan in the preamble for this, I said, I think that's empowering. I think somebody saying, hey, that's the worst you're ever going to do is empowering because they have the time perspective to understand and kind of look back from the future because they were in your position at one point in their life. I can very easily say that to people's first episodes. I say it all the time. I've said that to people. That's the worst you'll ever do. Don't worry about it. It's your first episode. What do you expect? It's better than I guarantee it's better than you actually think it is. So if you go into that understanding of, look, I've never done this before. I'm kind of playing with house money. This is the worst I'll ever do. And as long as I continue showing up, it'll only really, really get better from here. And you have to be the one who sees the betterment. Nobody else will probably see it because they weren't there for the first one. But understand that. When you do something new for the first time, think this to yourself. This is the worst it'll ever be. This is the worst it'll ever be. This is the worst it'll ever be. Alan says that all the time. This is the least amount of listens we'll ever have. This is the least amount of money we'll ever make. And this is the least amount of clients we'll have, the least amount of impact. In a weird way, it's empowering because it means that you're capable and on the path to growth.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad that lands because I'm not always certain that stuff lands. I'm grateful it's getting through.
It's getting through.
This is... So there's two interviews I want to describe here right now. Kevin and I have interviewed a lot of people, and we talk about that often. And that's one of the coolest things, because when you interview people all over the world, you start to connect these things. So one of the interviews, Kevin was really insecure. One of the interviews, I was actually a little bit less confident than Kev. And one of the interviews that I was less confident than you on, Kev, was Kenny Florian.
Ken Flo.
And here's why. Kevin has been watching mixed martial arts for 22 years.
Something like that, a long time. At least
right.
20.
And you were watching him back in like the early 2000s, right?
Yes.
So now I'm going to compare that to Steven Kotler. So Steven Kotler wrote a book called The Art of Impossible, and he wrote a bunch of other books. He wrote Abundance, Bold, The Future is Faster Than You Think, Superhuman something, How to Be a Superhero, something like that.
Is it Rise of Superman?
Rise of Superman. Thank you. Rise of Superman. The Art of Impossible, and then a couple others that I had read. I went into that interview having studied Steven Kotler's work for the last 6 years. Kevin had read The Art of Impossible, but that was kind of his first, not his first, but one of his first dives into neuroscience.
That was my first.
That was your first. Okay. So, of course, Kevin's going to be more confident with Kenny Florian, having studied UFC and watched Kenny Florian since the early 2000s, than me. Just like, of course, I'm going to be more confident on the interview with Steven Kotler because I've been studying neuroscience and peak performance and productivity for 6-7 years. So that's my point here. I wrote this down. Sometimes a lack of self-confidence is actually just uncertainty because you haven't done your research yet. Kevin talks all the time about how he's petrified of planes, and I'm always trying to help him understand the statistics. Statistically speaking, you are far more likely to be hurt in a car accident than on a plane. It's not even close statistically, mathematically. And when that doesn't land, he went and did his research and he figured out, okay, this is how a plane works. This is why the turbulence isn't necessarily that big of a concern, although that last flight we talk about is pretty brutal.
But even in the grand scheme of things, I think that helped me understand, like, this is really not that bad. Right. This is a good understanding. If you're out there and you're afraid of planes, the reason when they hit turbulence, they tell you to put your seatbelt on is because there are more in-flight injuries than anything else. So if you hit a patch of turbulence and somebody is going by you, they could fall on you, or the flight attendants could drop something on you. That's why it's so important, because you can fall down and twist your ankle.
Not hot coffee.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that can happen. Yeah.
Yep. And now that you know that, so think about this, and I'll share this last point. So I forget if it's 2019 or 2018, probably 2018, 39,000 motor vehicle deaths happened in the U.S. And don't quote me on that, 2018 or 2020, I forget which. I Googled it. Only one death of a shark. But which are we more scared of? I use this example all the time. I'm going to be a little less afraid. I'm still going to be afraid. Every time I go in the ocean, I'm afraid, just a little bit. And I will be fully transparent about that. Okay? But I'm going to be a little less afraid now that I've done my research. I'm going to be a little less afraid because we get in our car every day thinking nothing of it. But statistically speaking, probability speaking, mathematically speaking, you are 39,000 times more likely to die in your car than being eaten by a shark. But yet we don't treat it that way because we haven't done the research. And so research is super important. If you lack self-confidence, just study the thing. You're going to be more confident speaking if you've studied speaking. You're going to be more confident starting a business when you've studied business. We found out recently one of our team members has an MBA, and I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that. No wonder why you're so quick to start this potential clothing line. It's really kind of cool. When you study something, you're more confident. There's a direct correlation between self-confidence and how studied someone is.
That'll never land for me, the shark thing. It'll never land. I don't care. I could be that one. I could be that one person.
You might be.
I don't want to be.
In Florida, you came in, though.
Yeah, but I was terrified. I was waiting. I was like, man.
It's pretty scary.
Go for the eyes. Go for the eyes. If Alan and I were put into a math class together right now, I would blow Alan out of the water. What would happen is I would ask the teacher, whoever it was, I would say, hey, is there any way we can potentially possibly grade on a curve? Can we bring like other people in and then grade on a curve? Because I need help. I'm not going to be able to compete with Alan because Alan has been studying math for a lot longer. He knows all of how math progresses. I stopped at, I think, Algebra 2 or Geometry, whatever one's after. Geometry?
So Algebra 2, then Geometry, yeah.
Geometry was
in our high school.
Was the last hurrah for me. But the point I'm making here is, and Alan already spoke to this, but I wanted to tell my story about how I beat him at math. You have to run your experience through the filter of, if you're a beginner and you're comparing to an expert, you're not going to build confidence. But the weird thing is you don't see people where they started, you see people where they are. And that's why Alan and I are always quick to talk about our early stuff. Go look at Evan Carmichael's first YouTube video. It's him talking about Walt Disney in a full suit. Don't know why he had a suit on, but he's wearing a full suit. Gary Vee, he has his early stuff up. It's brutal. Go look at people's beginnings and judge yourself based on that. You can't judge yourself based on where people are, because what if, and Alan's really helped me with this, what if they've been doing it for 20 years and you've been doing it for 20 minutes? You don't know what you could be in 20 years. You could be way better than them. You just don't know it yet, right? And I really think that time perspective is difficult to land as well, but you really have to understand that, look, the people who are the best in the world at things have probably been doing it for a lot longer, and I think that helps build confidence. And then I'm going to jump to my last point, Alan. We have 4 minutes. I know we're off on time, but I want to make sure we get off on the right time here. Recently, Taryn and I went to paint night, and I was like, this is going to be brutal because she's really good, like doesn't need any help, doesn't need to paint by the numbers. I've never done this before. So this is going to be challenging. And number one, it was awesome. It was a very fun time. It was great. There was music, there was conversation, there was laughs. I was with her family, so it was wonderful.
Do you have it with you? Can you show it?
No, I don't. I was thinking about it. I don't know where it is. Oh, damn. I don't know where it is. She probably hit it.
Paint
no, I do know where it is. You want me to get it?
Yeah, man.
Hold space. I got to pull it off the wall.
I'll hold space. Do it. So my third point here, self-confidence can be faked, but it's useless. It's like a shiny sports car without an engine. It can't go anywhere. And underline the word can't on that. And this goes back to my original point that I started with, Kevin's back here, where if you think you're a level 10 confidence and you don't, so let me share this with everybody. All of us are 3 circles, and I want all of us to be 1 circle. I'll explain. So picture a target. Yeah, we're doing the circles.
It's like a circle.
Picture a target. The outer part of the circle, the outer layer, is what you want others to believe you are. The next inner layer is what you want to believe you are. The center is what you really are. Everyone, and by the way, those layers of BS, those layers of belief system are your ego. And some people are deflated and inflated. So I think that personal development, self-awareness, and self-improvement is how do you make all 3 of those circles the same? A lot of us have wishful thinking. We want to believe we're better than we really are. A lot of us actually think we're worse than we really are. My coaching with people all over the world, different industries, different backgrounds, different countries, different companies, all different products and services. What I'm trying to do is help them live in the truth. I'm trying to help them see, you know what? Okay, so that speaker I talked about earlier, you are a way better speaker than you think you are. And I'm not just saying that, I'm comparing it statistically to all the speakers I know, which is a lot. So you should have a podcast. And by the way, this person's going to start a podcast now because she's now aware enough to realize that she has a skill. You have this skill even without developing it. Imagine if you actually worked on it. How many books have you read on communication? She's like, none. I'm like, oh my goodness, you're going to be unbelievable. So 3 circles. Inner circle is who you really are. Next circle is who you want to believe you are. Third circle, who you want other people to believe you are. Try to make those circles all the same. That's what self-awareness really is. So if you're not a level 10 self-confidence, just admit it. You know what? I'm a 3, but I can get to 4, and I can get to 5, and I can get to 6, and I can work on it. You're not going to solve a problem that you don't have. Very last thing, self-confidence can be faked, but it's useless. It's like a shiny sports car without an engine. It can't go anywhere. Kevin, before this, he said, what sports car are you going to use as an example? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know sports cars.
You want to try one? Or
Viper. Dodge Viper.
Dodge Viper?
Dodge
Yeah, those
Viper.
are dangerous cars. Those are built for speed and nothing else. But that's a sports car. Strong work. Big
You
engine.
ever played Grand Theft Auto back in the day?
Of course.
The, what was it? The Spectre or something like that? Or no, I'm thinking of Twisted Metal. Spectre was a Viper.
It was a kind
In
of
Twisted Metal.
snake. It was a kind of snake. I just don't remember which one.
Gotcha.
But think about it. Are you ready for this? All right,
I'm
so
ready.
let me preface. So,
Drum roll.
no, not yet. I got to finish telling the story.
Okay.
So Tara and myself and her family went to paint night. And I remember thinking, going into it, I was like, oh man, this is going to be brutal. This is going to be very bad. I'm going to get laughed out. I'm going to get laughed out of this place because Taryn is so much better than I am. And I went in with this thought. I am going to disassociate from the outcome. I'm going to have a good time. I'm not going to take this too seriously. And I'm going to learn something. And I'm going to use this as a potential growth opportunity. If you're not watching this on YouTube, prepare yourself. And go
I'll
watch
describe
it on
it.
YouTube.
I'll describe
It's
it
masterful.
for the audio only. Oh, wow.
Right.
Hey.
It's pretty good, right?
Not bad. Can you pull it back a little bit so we can see the whole thing?
Yeah.
Pull it back a little bit for the audience. Not bad, Kev.
Do you know what I mean?
Happy Mother's Day. You going to give it to Mother for Mother's Day?
No, we actually hung these up on the wall in the hallway. So
nice.
This is my last point. Aim, I'm curious to think what you think about it. I'm going to throw that on the floor real quick. If you can practice stuff and try your best to disassociate from the outcome, you're going to be way better. You're going to be way better because you're going to do things you never would have done. You're going to do a podcast. I'm sure Aim early, when Amy was doing Listener Lives, she probably had to disassociate from the outcome and say, you know what, I'm just going to do this. Sarah's been doing Listener Lives, crushing them in Next Level Nation. I just think that if you go in with a different intention, maybe my intention was not to be the best artist possible. My intention was to have a good time. And I learned that, honestly, I'm not terrible. And again, it was kind of a paint by numbers, so it's expected that it looks that way. But it went better than I expected. What if you could get kind of a free play at something? What if you could get a free play? Somebody came up to you and said, hey, here's a token to play this game. Just have fun. And you played the game, and you said, oh, I'm actually pretty good at that. Interesting. Then you'd put more time into that and you can get way better, you get way better. But you have to disassociate from the outcome because I think a lot of us take it personally. Like, oh, what if I don't do well? What if it looks bad? That doesn't matter. I care more, and I say this all the time to podcast clients, just people in general. I care way more about the effort than I do the outcome. The outcome does not matter to me, especially if it's your first time doing it. I care about the effort and then the lessons and then what you're going to do with those lessons. Alan, anything in closing before we bring it in?
The very last thing is you've got to set small goals in advance. Decide to do things in advance and then go do them. If Kevin had said, "Oh, I'm gonna be the best painter ever," he would have lost self-confidence when he realized that's not true.
I am.
But instead of he went in saying, "You know what? I'm just gonna wing this and figure this out. I don't think it's gonna be that great." But he built self-confidence because he proved to himself that he can do a decent job. You gotta do that. Be careful of your expectations of self because they might be hurting your self-confidence rather than building it.
Next Level Nation, as you can see below, and we did this last month. Shout out to Nick who won. If you want to be entered in a drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card for probably 1 minute of your time. Just leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. Screenshot it, send it to myself and or Alan, email, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. Let us know who you are. We will enter you into the drawing. And then at the end of May, we will pick one lucky winner and we will email you. This is how you'll know you're the winner. We will email you a $100 Amazon gift card, no questions asked, and then you can go buy nice things for yourself or people that you love.
If you're like, man, I'm out here and I'm struggling with clarity, I'm struggling with consistency, which we all do, I'm struggling with confidence, I'm struggling with commitment, and I'm struggling with being in a community of like-minded people. You can improve all of those things. Kevin and I spent 24 hours of our time, 12 each, on a course that is free. He did not want it to be free. That is how valuable this course is. There are worksheets. Download the free course. There's something different about actually using a workbook and actually doing the work behind the scenes. On a podcast or on a live podcast, we can teach you these things, but there's going to be something different when you put pen to paper, either digitally or in the real world. So download that course. It's completely free. We will put the link in the show notes if you haven't already, Aim. I know I Jeff John which link to put, but please put it in there for me.